As negotiations over a ceasefire in Ukraine continue, a feeling of deja vu is haunting President Volodymyr Zelensky and Ukrainians. Demands to avoid a so-called Minsk III are growing stronger, referencing the 2014 agreement that was hailed as a deal to end the fighting in Ukraine's Donbas region. Claire Sebastian explains.
We need a durable and lasting peace, not a Minsk III.
More than a decade since their doomed attempt to end the fighting in Ukraine's Donbas region, and over 3 years since Russia's full-scale invasion killed any last hope of their revival, the Minsk Accords are far from forgotten.
I told President Trump about this. If you can get Putin to end the war, that's great. But know that he can cheat. He deceived me like that after the Minsk ceasefire.
Ukraine now desperate to avoid a repeat.
I think it's really very important, just and lasting peace for Ukraine.
Minsk II, signed in February 2015 after Minsk I broke down, offered what looked on paper like a solution to a bloody 10-month war between Kyiv's forces and Russian-backed separatists. It called for an immediate and comprehensive ceasefire, the withdrawal of heavy weapons on both sides with a security zone in between. And it also laid out a political compromise that allowed Kyiv to keep the separatist-controlled territory, a special regime in those areas, and constitutional reform with decentralization as a key element. But there's one thing it didn't mention.
The biggest problem with the Minsk agreements was that Russia was never mentioned as a party to the conflict. Russia actually had no obligation at all with regard to the implementation of the Minsk agreements.
Now, in the 4th year of a full-scale war, Russia no longer denies involvement. But false narratives like claims that Zelensky is an illegitimate president still part of the playbook.
Because of his illegitimacy, he has no right to sign anything.
We all want a peace through strength.
For Ukraine's European allies, the failure of Minsk reinforces the need to strengthen Ukraine militarily. In 2014, the first deal was signed after a brutal defeat in the Donetsk town of Ilovaisk. Minsk II agreed on as fierce fighting raged for the town of Debaltseve.
The Russian military has deployed a large amount of artillery and multiple rocket launcher systems around Debaltseve.
Ukraine first outgunned, then politically outmaneuvered. Something Michael Bosacue witnessed firsthand as then spokesperson for the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe's monitoring mission in Ukraine.
That whole process was viewed by the Ukrainians as something that was forced down their throat. It was almost a betrayal of Ukraine.
Amid mounting bloodshed, the Minsk Accords ultimately papered over the core issue, experts say: Russia's desire to control Ukraine's political future.
Comprehensive ceasefire agreements are not negotiated quickly. They're very complicated, many intricacies, and this is, of course, a huge problem and risk for Ukraine.